Existing within a family can feel really complicated, especially when that family has a foundation of toxic, unhealthy, and traumatic behaviors and thought patterns and ways of communicating. You know, anybody who has grown up in a family can say that they have experienced some kind of trauma, but it's only when that trauma has really disrupted the way that you see yourself, the way that you see your family, and the way that you function in the world, that really highlights that something is very, very wrong. It's only when those things happen to you, and especially over a repeated period of time, that you really, know that I have been a part of a traumatic and unhealthy family dynamic. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about family roles, and I want to highlight just how sociopaths manipulate these roles. Let's jump in. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel. For all of you who are subscribed and participating, thank you so much. And for those who are new, I encourage you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can stick around with us and be a part of our growing community. And in case you don't know who I am, my name is Tamara, and I'm an internationally and board certified trauma therapist, but I'm also licensed in mental health, and I specialize in treating children, teens, and families, as well as adults who are dealing with trauma. Let's jump in. Family roles are really complicated, and I think a lot of people fail to realize that we are built within our families. The moment that we were born and we enter this family dynamic, we really are entering a world with a set of patterns and ways of functioning and ways of thinking and ways of seeing the world. I think a lot of people feel as long as I'm loved and I'm cared for and I'm protected and I have shelter and I take this precious baby home and raise it with love and make sure that I give it everything it needs to survive, that things are going to be okay. But the reality is that never really guarantees a normal childhood, right? And it never guarantees a healthy adulthood. There is really nothing within a family that can guarantee that. When you're born into, as I said at the beginning, a set of patterns and dynamics and behaviors and thought patterns that can really throw you off if it is toxic and traumatizing. So, I think it's important that we highlight that some of these family roles are also manipulated by sociopaths. And, if you have a few sociopaths or narcissists within your family, you most likely have been manipulated by them, and you probably can relate to the roles that I will be highlighting right now. So the first role that I've done a lot of videos on this channel, and I'll try to post some in the description box below for you, is something known as the triangulator. Now, triangulation is a psychological concept in families, in social settings, in work environments, where one individual kind of assumes the role of victim. And when they assume the role of victim, they then make all their maneuvers and moves based on that victim mentality. What happens is the individual begins to manipulate other people in the environment. Most likely it's going to be two people, and those two people will in turn begin to act out particular roles as well. So an example of this might be, let's say that you are a daughter to your mother who, has a really tumultuous relationship with her own mother, and you're very close with great grandma. Your brother happens to be in more of an adversarial position with your great grandmother than you. Okay, so you're getting favored, you're getting loved, you're getting supported, but your brother is not. Let's say your mother begins to take the role of victim, right? Believing that you are milking that situation for all it's worth, you are hurting your brother, and you are destroying the family dynamic, right? Your mother has taken the role of victim. You have become the persecutor in that situation, and your brother, for example, who is standing up for his mother, right, and coming against you, is the rescuer. Now, here's how this would look, and I'm going to see if I can kind of write this out for you. Let me grab a clipboard. I'll be right back. I'm just coming around here, and I'm going to show you how this goes, because this is something that I do a lot in sessions with my families. I find it useful to kind of give you a visual. So we have the victim at the top of that triangle. Okay, then we have the persecutor, And then we also have the rescuer, okay? And here's how that looks. I don't know if you can see that on your screen. I would try to post something right over here for you so you can see it. So there's the dynamic, okay? And it's an unhealthy dynamic, because what happens is you start becoming the one that everybody is targeting, okay? Because for them, your mother and your brother, you know, you're the one who's creating the imbalance here. So your mother is the victim because she takes the position of victim, right? I can't believe you're doing this to me. Why would you, you know, try to get along with my mother? And you know I have never gotten along with my mother. And why would you do this to your brother? You know your brother doesn't have a relationship with her, right? Your brother is now the rescuer, because your brother is now coming after you by saying things like, why would you do this to mom, right? How dare you? How dare you try to foster this relationship and not have anything to say about, you know, our mom's relationship with her own mother? Now your brother's the rescuer, your mother's the victim, and now you're the persecutor, right? Because you're the one creating the imbalance here. And what happens in this dynamic, right, over time, is that your mother walks away wounded and your brother walks away angry, and nobody wins in that situation, right? Everybody is clashing and at odds. So that's the triangulation. Now, you know, there are some people who intentionally create this triangle, and they do so in hopes of disrupting peace, disrupting functionality, and disrupting normalcy. Right, so some people utilize triangulation as a tool. It is very, very evil. And some narcissists and sociopaths use it as well. So keep that in mind. So the triangular is one role, that you or somebody else in your family may play. Now the next family role would be the switchboard. Now the switchboard is an individual who, you know, kind of sits at the switchboard and gives everybody in the family information, right? The information giver. It's the one who kind of gossips, and they gather details and then they spread the details to everyone in the family. We all have a switchboard in our family. I do, you know, my brother and his wife, my mother and, you know, her ex-husband, right? So my family has it, your family has it. Tons of my clients also have the switchboard person in our lives. You know, this particular individual can really create chaos, and a lot of times they tend to be the triangulator, right? Because they have that information that we all want to know in the family. We all want to know what happened to Aunt Susu and her husband. Why aren't they living in the same house anymore, right? And so that switchboard person, that information giver, comes to us and says, hey, so this is why they're not living together. And sometimes that creates that triangle, right? Because, you know, we begin stepping automatically into roles that we may not even be aware of, right? We don't even know we're entering a triangle sometimes, but we are. And I'll talk more about that as we go along. The next role is the family hero. Now, this is the savior, right? The individual in the family that everybody kind of looks to. I tend to play that role in my family, where everybody comes to me, especially my friends and my colleagues. Everybody comes to me with questions and they want information and insight. My mother and my brother, they come to me for things. And I tend to be the one that they look to initiate really difficult situations. So do I want that role? Absolutely not. And I'm sure if you can relate to me, you don't want it either, because it's a lot of pressure. But sometimes we automatically fall into that role, and we don't mean to, but that's just kind of how it goes, you know? So that's the hero. Now the rescuer within the family is the responsible one, right? And that's the individual who rescues everybody from the chaos that's going on in the family or in their own life, right? Or rescues you from what's going on in your life, I should say, okay? So you probably have a rescuer in your family, and I kind of talked about that when we looked at the triangulator. The next one is the scapegoat, or the black sheep. This is the individual that everybody kind of looks down upon, and they kind of, they kind of hope, the family kind of hopes that this black sheep and this scapegoat would go over there and not be seen because you're too much of an embarrassment, right? This is the substance abuser, the single mother, the biracial child, right? The multi-ethnic family member, right? This is the individual who the family has kind of shunned, right? There may be some value there, and a lot of times there is some value there, and I like to, as the therapist, find that value in that black sheep. But there are some, families that feel like there's no value here, so you're going to go over there somewhere and leave us alone because we're all worth it and you're not, So that's the scapegoat or the black sheep. Now the lost child is somebody, usually the youngest child of the family, or the one who's more quiet and internalizes things. This individual kind of has no clue what they want to do with their life, but they're very smart, very plugged into things, but they just don't talk about it. They may do what's called selective mutism, right? They only talk when they need to. They only engage when they need to. They don't engage much outside of, what they really need to talk about. They give you the bare necessity, right? The minimal information, and then they're done. And we can all have elements of that, because I'm like that too at times, So that's the lost child. Now, the lost child can also be the observer, right? They kind of sit back and observe all the interactions in the family unit. The clown is the problem child, the child who just kind of jokes around and everything is funny and everything's a joke and nothing is taken seriously, and they're kind of sarcastic, and they're really immature for their age. No matter what you put them in, whether that's a BMW, Stanford education, a Harvard education, they're going to be a clown, right? Nothing is taken seriously, everything is a joke. This particular individual can really destabilize the family because they take nothing seriously. And a sociopath and a narcissist within a family will definitely hop on this bandwagon and manipulate this individual, right? Because this individual doesn't have their eyes open. They're too busy clowning around in life to really understand that this is a serious venture. So, the clown can really be a problem within the family. The next is the cheerleader. Now, this is the individual who kind of promotes everyone and inspires and motivates and empowers. And this individual may be the religious person in your family, right? It may be the Christian grandmother or the Christian aunt. It may be the aunt who is very spiritual and she meditates and she really processes her emotions, right? This may be the therapist of the family, the person who kind of pushes you up that very difficult hill, The cheerleader is very essential to a family dynamic, right? Because no matter what happens, they're going to always be there to support you. The next is the nurturer, and I also take this role within my family. You just want to nurture everybody, love them, support them, be open to them, bring them into your environment, draw them in, you just want to be there for them no matter what. This role is really tricky also with the sociopath, because the sociopath will manipulate that nurturer and try to get everything that they can out of that nurturer. So you want to keep that in mind. Another one that we failed to realize, another role would be the thinker. And this is the individual who kind of processes everything that is said, everything that is done within a family dynamic or unit. They kind of stand off from things sometimes, and they're reasonable, logical, and objective. They're the ones who's like a family Einstein. My younger brother is like that, and they may not talk a lot, but when they need to talk, they say something and you're like, they turn heads. You're like, what? Where'd that come from? And so, the thinker is really plugged in to factual, objective information. Okay. And last but not least is the mediator. And that's the one who kind of gets in and kind of mediates things, stands in the middle, and kind of keeps people in the family from fighting, right? Kind of keeps things level and grounded for everybody. These are all roles that the sociopath and the narcissist can manipulate. It's a very sad reality. It only takes one narcissist, one manipulator, one sociopath within a family to derail a family, right? And sometimes we are pushed into negative roles, right? Like the black sheep role, the clown role, the nurturer who's a little bit too nurturing, right? Where you put your feelings on the line so much, And so these roles can be both positive in some ways and both negative. I want you to keep that in mind. They can be used for good and used for evil as well. And sometimes the narcissist, the sociopath, will use these roles to manipulate, and sometimes they will identify these roles within their family and figure out how to kind of manipulate those individuals to get what they want. So in the next video, I'll give you some information on how to manage these kind of people. Thank you so much for being with me today in this video. I encourage you to give it a thumbs up and go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you want to stick around and get more videos like this, and that bell button, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much. Bye.